This is the Brave New Coin Crypto Conversation, hosted by Andy Pickering.
Hi everyone, Andy Pickering here. I'm your host and welcome to the Crypto Conversation, a Brave New Coin podcast where we talk to the people building the future in the Bitcoin, blockchain and cryptocurrency space. My guest today is Samson Mow. Samson is the Chief Strategy Officer at Blockstream. He's part of the Magical Crypto crew and he is a proud Bitcoin maximalist and toxic Twitter troll, sort of. Welcome to the show, Samson.
Thanks, Andy. Thanks for having me on.
It is a pleasure. So look, Samson, I think most listeners to the Crypto Conversation, they will know exactly who you are and what you do. But for the record, could you give us a quick bit of background on yourself? Like, where are you from? What were you doing before crypto? What's your video game of choice? Who is your favorite anime character? And how did you end up at Blockstream?
Okay, that's a lot of questions wrapped up in one.
Let's rattle through them. Go.
So I guess my background is video game development. That is the industry I started out in, and I'm actually still very much involved in game dev. I've worked at big companies like Relic, which was owned by THQ and later acquired by Sega, and at Ubisoft, and a couple other startups spread it around there. And I also run Pixelmatic, which is a game dev company primarily based out of Shanghai and Vancouver. My foray into crypto and Bitcoin was from when I joined BTC China, which was the largest exchange in China at the time, one of the largest in the world, and one of the largest mining pools too. And what were the other questions?
I think we can come back to that later in the show, Samson. Why don't we cover off, first off, what Blockstream is, the Blockstream thesis on Bitcoin, the products that you guys are working on, and then in the second part of the show, I'd love to talk about gaming, internet culture, Reddit trolls, meme wars, conspiracy theories, that kind of stuff. Sound good?
Yeah, sounds like a plan.
All right, let's start from the top. Samson, what is Blockstream?
So Blockstream is a Bitcoin infrastructure company. We focus on a lot of protocol layer aspects of Bitcoin and layer 2 for scaling. We work on things like sidechains, which are ways to extend Bitcoin, where you can have more experimental features, different rule sets, but still be using Bitcoin as the base currency of that chain. We have a lot of different products kind of covering a wide swath of the ecosystem. And I would say Blockstream's thesis is that Bitcoin is the only tech really worth building on, and that's largely why a lot of the things that we are doing are related to Bitcoin in some way. So we don't really focus on enterprise blockchain or altcoins or anything like that.
Right, so Blockstream's mission is to create the financial infrastructure of the future, but build it on and around the Bitcoin blockchain, right?
Yeah, so I would say we're building a financial system of the future anchored to Bitcoin.
Sure. Give us a little bit of background on who Blockstream is, who founded it, who are the investors behind it, because I think that one way to understand Blockstream is kind of like, some of the big early investors into Bitcoin also supported Blockstream as a way to not so much protect their investment, but to encourage the build out of the Bitcoin ecosystem, right?
I think you could say that. I mean, one of our big investors is Reid Hoffman, and he was a large part of our seed round where we raised 21 million. That was back in 2014. So Blockstream's been around for a few years. So I'll just go back to and give the history first. So we were founded by Dr. Adam Back. He's the creator of Hashcash, which is a precursor to proof of work as we know it in Bitcoin. And a lot of the co-founding team members were Bitcoin developers. Some of them have gone back to working on open source, and some have moved on to other companies, also continuing the mission and building open source software and working on Bitcoin as well. So as I mentioned, Reid Hoffman is one of our larger investors, but we also have backing from a bunch of other venture companies. We have funding from Horizons Ventures, so that's a VC firm out of Hong Kong. And I think it was started by Li Ka-shing. He's a Hong Kong billionaire. And we also have Digital Garage, which is a public company in Tokyo, in Japan. And we've actually created a JV with them called Crypto Garage, along with a large, how do you explain it? Tokyo Tanshi. It's a like an interbank broker, and it's been around for like 100 years. So that's something interesting that we're working on there. And yeah, we have a lot of other VC firms. I think AXA Ventures, Khosla Ventures, a lot of Silicon Valley firms.
That's right. And you mentioned Reid Hoffman, who, of course, Reid's the founder of LinkedIn, isn't he?
Yes, I think a co-founder of LinkedIn.
Can we ever expect to see some kind of Bitcoin integration with LinkedIn, do you think?
It'd be interesting, of course, but I'm not sure if that would make sense for their product. But, you know, he's also on the board of directors at Microsoft, I believe. So maybe there's something we could do there.
Yeah, I think we're probably more likely to see something on Twitter before LinkedIn.
Yeah. Your other comment, like some of our investors want to see Bitcoin succeed. I think you could say Reid is one of those investors. He's very bullish on Bitcoin, and he even participated in the lightning torch that went around last year. So sure. He has a vested interest in making sure Bitcoin development continues on Bitcoin, and we make the protocol more robust and scalable.
All right, well, let's run through some of the core Blockstream products and technologies then, Samson. And maybe, you know, I don't want to go too deep into each one, but I'd like to get your thoughts on how you see each product or protocol, what their role is in terms of supporting Bitcoin and strengthening the protocol and the ecosystem. So you mentioned Lightning, and so Lightning, of course, is not a product. It's a layer 2 payment protocol, and I think most people know that the idea behind Lightning is to enable instant, low-cost Bitcoin transactions. Mm-hmm. As a means of scaling the network, right? So, well, talk to me about how Blockstream supports Lightning.
Right. So one of the Lightning dev teams is at Blockstream. So we work on C Lightning primarily. And we have Rusty, Christian Decker, and Lisa Neigut. And that's the Blockstream C Lightning team. There are other contributors to C Lightning as well outside of the company. But this is something we started in 2015. So we've been investing in Lightning R&D quite early on. I think it's also one of the more popular implementations. It's, I guess, more focused on the enterprise market, being more robust and having a very light footprint. So it's easy to run. You can run it on very lightweight hardware like a Raspberry Pi. Yeah, like you mentioned, Lightning is a very key part of Bitcoin infrastructure, which is why we're focused on it, because it allows Bitcoin to be used for payments and micropayments. And it just kind of fills a hole in what Bitcoin can do, which is quick and fast payments.
That's right. So Lightning, you know, there's a lot of excitement around the potential for Lightning, I think, because obviously, you know, the one thing that Bitcoin isn't good at is fast, cheap payments or microtransactions. That's not really what Bitcoin is. But if we can enable that via Lightning, it certainly does open up the Bitcoin ecosystem. And I saw you tweeted recently, you talked about the Lightning Network's theoretical throughput and how that exceeds not only any next generation blockchain, if such a thing exists, mm-hmm. but even, you know, legacy payment systems like Visa or Alipay even. And you said, I think, that we've reached an inflection point where decentralized systems can outperform centralized systems. So you had an image there, and the image says that Lightning and private channels have the potential to do 25 million transactions per second.
Yeah, so this is actually from a talk I gave at a conference. Actually, I've given this talk a few times, but these are typically blockchain conferences, and there's always something at the conference or some project that's going on stage, or they have a booth and they say, we're a next gen blockchain and we have, you know, hundreds of thousands of TPS. And I just wanted to put it into perspective that, well, first of all, I don't think they can achieve like that level of TPS without some serious trade-offs, like massive centralization where it's just a couple of validator nodes that are running the network. But, you know, you can't really compete with something like Lightning Network. And the theoretical throughput is actually I would say, a low estimate. We've done some testing and benchmarking, and each channel can achieve about 500 TPS, but I think that number could increase by a lot. But it's a way to kind of explain that TPS is not really relevant for something like the Lightning Network, because it's based on per channel ability to process. And as the network grows and there are more channels, of course, that number is going to keep going up. And yes, as you mentioned, it is an inflection point, because these centralized payment systems like Visa or Alipay, they top out around 60, maybe 100,000 TPS. And that's for like peak season, like Christmas time, or for China during Chinese New Year, when everyone is sending around red packets. With Bitcoin, it's a totally different game. You're building this payments network on top of decentralized money. So it's unconfiscatable, uncensorable, and now you can actually achieve massive amounts of throughput with something like Lightning.
Sure. And, when we talk about next generation blockchains, I suppose a good example there would be someone like Hedera Hashgraph. They're claiming a significant order of magnitude increase over Bitcoin, which of course is, around 10 transactions per second. But it's all very well talking about 25 million TPS on Lightning, but, to get there is a little bit of a challenge. Let's use an example. This week we saw famous Bitcoin skeptic and boomer gold bug Peter Schiff. He lost access to his Bitcoin, or he claimed to lose access to some Bitcoin because his wallet password didn't work.
His wallet forgot its password.
That's right. That's what he said.
Yeah.
And not to pick on Peter the boomer too much, but I think that's a good example of how Peter lost access to his wallet. So how do we get to the point where people can use Lightning quickly and easily and seamlessly, to compete against something like Visa or Alipay or Apple Pay? How far away are we from something like that, Samson?
Well, I think there are a few things that are needed. One of them is we need better wallets. It's going to be a mix of custodial and non-custodial, I believe. I don't think it's going to be realistic to assume everyone's going to be running a non-custodial Lightning wallet. Not everyone, at least. And we do need something like a point-of-sales terminal to integrate Lightning. And I think that is the path to mass adoption. We need the wallets and the venues where it can be spent. Or if it's not a point-of-sale terminal, like a payment gateway processor, payment processor integrating Lightning would also do the trick. But I think it's doable in the next couple of years. I think 4 to 5 years is reasonable to expect it, because technology always advances faster than we expect it will. And talking with a lot of Lightning devs at Blockstream, it sounds like 2020 is the year that we're going to realize a lot of gains, because 2019 was when they're still improving the protocol, improving stability, and just making it more rock solid. And 2020 is the year that everyone's going to focus on making it more accessible and more private and more usable. It's important to keep in mind that we've only had Lightning since 2018. For a protocol to be widely adopted, it's going to take some time, especially something built on top of another protocol that is still considered experimental, like Bitcoin.
Exactly right. Let's see what happens. Network effects are a powerful thing. Hey, you said it, Samson, 2020, potentially the year of Lightning. Let's keep moving. Let's talk Liquid. So Liquid is one of your Blockstream's big products, I suppose. People have a bit of a misunderstanding of Liquid because it's not for payments or anything like that. It's really more designed for traders, but let's talk Liquid. So what is Liquid, Samson?
Right. So Liquid, we try to explain it as an inter-exchange settlement network. So it's a network that can link together different crypto exchanges, trading desks, OTCs, anything that needs to move money quickly and confidentially. But the interesting thing about Liquid is that you could use it for payments. So recently we announced that BTC Pay Server has integrated Liquid as well as supporting Liquid assets. So you can actually use it to pay. You can use Liquid Tether. So Tether, the largest stablecoin, is now available, has been available on Liquid for some time. Recently, there has been a very large transfer from Ethereum Tether to Liquid Tether. And that's kind of paving the way for people to use Tether for retail payments. And if you take a step back and zoom out, this is kind of a potential replacement for Libra. So you already have a stablecoin, a widely adopted, widely used, and you have a way to pay with Liquid Tether, and for people to hold Liquid Tether easily in a mobile wallet. So Blockstream Green, our wallet product, that supports liquid and liquid assets like Tether or anything else issued in the network. And if you take another step back, you'll probably have heard that we can actually have a Lightning Network running on top of a liquid asset. So if a lot of people have Liquid Tether in their wallets, down the road, we could have a Lightning Network for Tether too. So you could pay instantaneously and almost for free.
Okay, well, that sounds quite exciting.
It is. And I think that's it goes to show like a lot of the things that we work on at Blockstream look like they're unrelated, but there is a grand plan for how everything starts to coalesce and interoperate together, like Liquid with Green, with Lightning, and other things that we're working on too.
That's right. And people can issue their own tokens on Liquid if they want to as well, can't they?
Yeah, so it's really simple. You just run a command, issue asset. How many assets do you want a reissuance token so that you could reissue that asset later? So something like Tether, they would have a reissuance token, but you could also make it so there's no reissuance and it's a limited quantity of that asset. You can do multi-sig issuance too. So that's something that we coded up for Tether to do, where they need several signatures to issue their asset so that no one can accidentally fat finger and print by accident.
And how is that different from what Ethereum does, though? There's been hundreds, if not thousands, of tokens, most of which are reasonably pointless, issued on Ethereum. Why is that different to what Liquid is doing?
The tokens issued in Liquid are native to the Liquid blockchain. If you think of Liquid Bitcoin, which is the pegged in Bitcoin, it's just like Bitcoin on the chain, except for with assets, you have other Bitcoin level things in that network. So Liquid Tether, Liquid Canadian dollar, any asset in the network is equivalent to Liquid Bitcoin at the level of functionality. So you can have a multi-sig wallet supporting a liquid asset. You can do Lightning or anything you could do. You could create Bitcoin type smart contracts using liquid assets too. So I guess the difference primarily with Ethereum is that Ethereum, they use a smart contract to create a token, and it's a more convoluted process that has a lot more attack surface. And we've seen a lot of that in the past where their smart contracts break and things just stop working. Wallets can be broken or there's a hack like the DAO. But it's just a much more janky setup to accomplish the same thing as issuing an asset on Liquid.
Okay, sounds good. Look, I'll come back to that later in the show. I do want to talk a bit more about your views on Ethereum. To keep moving through Blockstream, can we give a shout out to the Blockstream Satellite? One of the more exciting products I think that you guys have released. And I like the way that you just work on something quietly in the background and then you announce it. So the Blockstream Satellite, I think you launched or you announced that probably a year ago now. But what is the Blockstream Satellite and how does that help strengthen the Bitcoin ecosystem?
Yeah, I think we announced it in 2017, shortly after I joined, I remember.
Okay, it's a while ago.
Yeah, it's a while. There's a few things that Blockstream Satellite does that helps Bitcoin. One of them is that anybody can synchronize a Bitcoin full node or keep a Bitcoin full node in sync, just connecting to the satellite. And that's beneficial for a few reasons. One of them is that you don't have to use up your bandwidth. So if you're in a country that has limited bandwidth or broadband is expensive, then you can just use the satellite to get the blocks. The other benefit is that it allows for new use cases. So where there is no internet, someone could still run a Bitcoin full node, receive payments, and validate that their payment is received. There's also improved privacy with Blockstream Satellite too. So if you're running a full node over your ISP can determine that you're running Bitcoin, and that could be a problem if you're in a country where there's limited freedom. But if you have a dish and it's just outside your house, no one knows if you're getting Bitcoin data or if you're getting a satellite TV show. It's much better that way. So you can basically be off-grid and still get Bitcoin. So if you need to send a transaction, you can broadcast through an SMS gateway. I think Trezor has one. And there's a couple other ways that you can do it too. So you can broadcast a raw transaction over blockstream.info, which is our explorer too. So it allows for new ways to use Bitcoin. And we also have an API that lets people broadcast messaging over the satellite too. So it's kind of cool. And I don't know, people really love Blockstream Satellite, and I think it inspires a lot of people.
Well, it does inspire a lot of people, and I think it's just because, as humans, we have a natural fascination for space, right? Because it is the great unknown. And I think what you guys need to do is, have a word to Elon Musk, because you guys know about Starlink, right?
Yes.
It's the satellite constellation that SpaceX are building out, and I think that is going to, I might get this wrong, but I think it's hundreds, if not thousands, of satellites. Is there a possibility that you guys could get involved with SpaceX and Elon, and maybe imagine if Bitcoin was tapped into the Starlink satellite network?
Yeah, I mean, we're definitely interested. And Elon Musk, if you're listening to this, give me a call and we'll talk. But I don't know. Starlink is kind of meant to serve up broadband internet to everyone. The question is how they get that internet, because based on what I know from working with Blockstream Satellite, Starlink satellites are LEO, so they're low Earth orbit, which means you need a dish that would be able to move and track it. I think it would require some sort of specialized hardware. I'm not exactly sure. It's based on how many they have up in space, and if an end user could just point a dish and be able to get data. But for Blockstream Satellite, our satellites are in geosynchronous orbit, so that's quite high out. Any dish would be able to get the signal, right? So anybody could just get an old used DirecTV dish, pointed at the satellite, and because the satellite's not moving, it's just a one-time setup, and that's it. So it's a question of what their end product is going to look like. Is it accessible by anybody, or is it they have their own ground-based stations that are receiving the signal and then relaying it out again?
Sounds good. Well, one way or another, Bitcoin obviously is going to the moon, and then perhaps to Mars and beyond. We'll have to see. But let's move on to mining. Samson, I said before that you just come out of nowhere with announcements, and you did the same when you announced Blockstream mining. You can give me the background here, but am I correct in saying that one of the reasons Blockstream went into mining, and you did it by stealth, is, one of the big reasons would be fear of, the possible centralization of mining. Obviously, a couple of years ago it was heavily based in China, and it still is, maybe less so now. But yeah, what's the Blockstream thesis on mining, and again, just from the angle of how that helps protect and enhance the Bitcoin network?
Right. So I would say my thesis and Adam Back's thesis is that everybody should be mining, especially if you are a company in the, crypto or Bitcoin space. It doesn't really make sense to not be involved at some level, because you have to secure the network. Somebody has to secure the network. So either you're outsourcing that completely, or you're taking part in the security of the network, which is what mining is. I think one of the reasons that I jump-started that initiative at Blockstream was because, as you mentioned, there were threats of attacks where mining pools and miners were saying, we're going to fork Bitcoin and do something. And all it takes is for ordinary Bitcoin companies and users to have some hash rate, and that kind of attack can be mitigated. And I think with what we've managed to launch, that should help in some way. It's always going to be hard for people to get involved in mining, just because there are economies of scale for setting up a large operation, being able to negotiate power deals, and just getting that infrastructure piece. But the long-term goal is that we would be able to sell hosting to end users with, a few machines, like 5 to 10 mining rigs, and we would host that for them. And that would allow more people to start mining that otherwise may not have been mining. So one of our customers is Reid Hoffman. He's come up a few times, but he's also, a Bitcoin supporter, and he's a miner. And if we didn't have the service available, it's doubtful that he would actually have, gone out, secured power, built up the infrastructure himself, and started mining. But because this exists, it allows him to have that choice.
Sure, but I think, it's one thing to say people that are interested in Bitcoin or holding Bitcoin or working in the Bitcoin ecosystem, they should be mining to support the network. And I think that's probably correct in theory, but it's, as you say, it is very difficult at an even at an individual level or at a small company level, the costs and benefits of mining, they don't really stack up at an individual level, do they?
Yeah, it is a challenge. I mean, a lot of people are scared to get involved. It's not simple, and you have to deal with getting equipment and procuring that. And, if you're a software company, like let's just take Jack Dorsey and Square for an example, right? So obviously they're selling Bitcoin through Cash App. Should they get involved in mining? I think it would make sense for them, because if they're heavily invested in the Bitcoin ecosystem, it would make sense to make a small investment with mining. Would they want to set up their own operation? I don't know, but I think there's a few options. If not Blockstream, there's other companies in the space that are offering hosting and opportunities for people to get set up and mine. Taking Cash App as an example in Square, they should probably do that. I think it would be good for them and good for their users.
Look, I couldn't agree more. Are you talking to them? Why, Blockstream is probably in a better position than most to reach out to Jack and say, look, Jack, you're obviously a big supporter of Bitcoin and decentralized networks. Why don't you get involved? I can't see him saying no.
Yeah, well, there's a lot of things to do, and it's just priorities. So we already have a lot of interest in mining. We're ramping up constantly. We have not filled out all of our capacity yet, but we're oversubscribed right now. So people are emailing us all the time, and we just have to say we're not ready to take anyone else on at this time. So, I mean, if we have capacity, I would definitely reach out to Jack. And if Jack, you're listening, hit me up.
All right, so we've got Elon on the moonshot Starlink list. We've got Jack Dorsey on the Bitcoin mining list. I think we're doing well. We're making some big moves here, Samson.
Yeah, it's all happening.
There's been lots of conspiracy theories about Blockstream over the years, and I'm sure that is quite frustrating. But I'd love to just not so much address the conspiracy theories, but talk about the Blockstream model in terms of, I guess, monetizing these products, which is fair enough. You guys are a private company. You've got investors who want a return, but I just want your comments as to why you think some part of the crypto community really have got their knickers in a twist over Blockstream over the years, and they still do. They think there's a plot to take over Bitcoin. Can you maybe just address that and say, what's your take on that?
Yeah, there are always conspiracy theorists. I think it's not just limited to Bitcoin. I mean, there are flat Earth conspirators too, and it's just a part of society, I guess, at this point. But for Bitcoin specifically, I would say what kicked it off was that a lot of the Blockstream co-founders were Bitcoin developers. And the reason for that was simply in 2014, there were not that many companies that were employing Bitcoin developers to work on the tech and to work on tangential technology that could be monetized even, right? So, back then, I think MIT did some, we did a lot, kind of like from employing people to work just on Bitcoin, but also just employing them in general to work on other technology like Liquid and sidechains, but has a direct feedback into Bitcoin. But back then, there was no Square crypto, there was no chain code, and a lot of these things came later. When people online see, there's like 5 or 6 core developers starting a company, that equates some dark force taking over Bitcoin. The fact that we are VC backed, it may also cause some people to have some concerns. Like, I think a lot of the conspiracy theorists, they don't really understand how companies work. So they see, this is where it gets kind of really weird and annoying, but they say that AXA is controlling Bitcoin, and AXA is a bank. But AXA is not a bank, it's an insurance company, and it's their venture arm. And I think a chairman of AXA was involved in the Bilderberg Group, so they're saying it's all connected to the Bilderberg Group. But again, it goes down to a misunderstanding of how companies work. So just because we have an investment from a company, so even if it was the Bilderberg Group, that doesn't mean that they dictate what we do. It would be our board of directors that tells us what to do. And, this is where it all breaks down, and the conspiracy theories just become crazier and crazier.
Absolutely. All right, well, I want to talk more about conspiracy theories in the second part of the show.
Sure.
But just before we go to a break, let's just have, just got two more Bitcoin questions I just want to throw past you, Samson. So, 2020, you said that 2020 may be the year of lightning. And look, let's hope so. But obviously, 2020 is also the year of the Bitcoin halving, so that will be a key narrative this year. So yeah, look, just quick thoughts from you on the Bitcoin halving, anything you expect to see or don't expect to see. How does the stock to flow model tie into this? What's your take on the halving?
So I think the price will go up, if not before the halving, then after. We've seen that happen in the past, and it's just that markets are not that efficient. So you think that most people know that supply is going to be cut, but the reality is that's because we are very much involved in Bitcoin and we're watching every day. But the general population doesn't understand that, and that supply shock could take time to actually reach people and impact pricing. So I think price is going to go up. As for stock to flow, I think it's a very interesting model with a very strong co-integration. I will have a lot more faith in it if it holds up after this halving, and I'll believe it 100%. And I think there is something to it. I just want to see more data before I would say, this is the future. But I do like the model, and I do like the work being done around the model.
Yeah, me too. I think it's a fascinating model, and it really is. That's the $1 million question, isn't it? How long will the model hold? And for anyone who has skin in the game, 2020 and I suppose the 6 to 12, 18 months after the halving, a lot of questions will be answered. All eyes will be on Bitcoin. Look, exciting times ahead, right?
Definitely.
Last question before we go to the break. What do you guys see as the biggest threats to Bitcoin at this time?
I think Bitcoin is in a really good place right now. We've gone through a lot of drama and, the civil war with the whole scaling debate. And I don't really see any immediate threats on the horizon. We've gone through a lot of things, like people now understand that forks are not Bitcoin. There was a time when it was unsure and people thought, okay, this is going to fork and, the little fork is going to become Bitcoin. And we see that's not the case. So Bcash forked off and they're dying. We've had the drama about scaling and block size, and Lightning kind of addresses that. Lightning it's in the adoption mode. It's growing, the number of channels combined with private channels is on the increase. Mining, I think, is being better. It's moving out of China. We're seeing more companies pop up in North America, like Blockstream and others, and that's good for the ecosystem. Yeah, I think overall, it's quite a good time for Bitcoin. It's a nice setting, and it's quite peaceful.
Couldn't agree more. Sounds good to me, Samson. All right. It's a nice time to be in Bitcoin. 2020. Here we go. Well, let's go to a very quick break. And then, Samson, I want to talk about gaming, internet culture, Reddit trolls, meme wars, conspiracy theories, and toxicity. Back in 1 second.
Whether you're an enterprise fund manager or a retail trader, buying and selling cryptocurrencies successfully requires price discovery you can rely on. Brave New Coin's liquid indices provide trusted US dollar prices for Bitcoin, Ethereum, and Ripple. Featuring end-of-day or intraday outputs, you can count on the BLX, ELX, and XRPLX for accurate US dollar pricing for smart contract oracles, settlement price discovery, net asset valuation, and performance analysis. Visit bravenewcoin.com to find out more.
Samson, for a variety of strange and complex reasons, you seem to attract internet drama, so much so that you've doubled down and adopted this persona of a troll, or you've owned the toxic maximalist persona, which has always seemed, slightly off to me, because I don't really see you as a troll. You're someone who stands up for Bitcoin, and I guess from one angle, you're a meme guy. But for the record, do you see yourself as a troll, and what's the deal with the toxic label?
That's interesting. I don't really think I'm a troll, but people call me a troll, so I don't really mind either. A lot of people have been called toxic too. And again, it doesn't really matter. And I think it goes back to the whole maximalist label, which was created by Vitalik. It's just a way to broadly paint people with a brush and try to trivialize them. So I think maximalism has been adopted too. Like originally it's not like something you'd be proud to be labeled, but I think people don't care anymore. They say, yeah, I'm a maximalist. And then the whole toxicity thing came out and people said, yeah, okay, now I'm a toxic maximalist. So I don't think I'm any of those things, but I don't really care either if people call me that because it doesn't really matter in the end. And I think one way that people can own it is just by laughing at it, like the toxic maximalism thing. I made a hat for that, and it's just a fun thing. There's a lot of these things that come out there. I made a hat for the Dragon's Den too, which was going back to the conspiracy theory stuff that RBTC said Bitcoin's controlled by these guys in this chat room called the Dragon's Den. So I made a hat and people started wearing the hat just to kind of laugh at that.
Yeah, well, I think the easiest way to understand toxic maximalists is from a Bitcoiner's perspective. They act as Bitcoin's immune system, right?
Yeah, I would say toxicity is really just calling things out, calling a spade a spade. I mean, everyone that I know has been called toxic at some time. Even Adam Back was called toxic by someone, I forgot who. One man's toxic is another guy's critic, right? So there are products out there people are invested in, and they may not be good products or projects. And if people call them out for being scammy or misleading, then to them, that's very toxic and it's evil and it's very bad, right?
There's actually a long list of people who you have had fairly intense run-ins, you know, from people from the crypto community who have, for one reason or another, either tried to make some kind of change to the Bitcoin network or go against Bitcoin. I'm not sure if that's slightly contentious to say, but you know, people like Vitalik, Jihan Wu, Roger Ver, Craig Wright, you know, the backers of Segwit 2X, to name a few. And you've had public fights with all of these people, right?
Yeah, I don't know if it qualifies as a fight, though. It's more about calling out things and explaining things. But I mean, for them, maybe it's considered a fight. I don't know. But it's not like I hold a grudge and I hate this guy now because he backed us. Mike Belche was a backer of 2X, and you know, after everything died down, you know, I reached out to him. We met up, had a coffee. There's no bad blood, I think. It's just really, at the time, I would call it out and I'd say this is a bad idea. It lacks support. It's probably going to fail. But I don't think that's like a fight.
What's your relationship like with someone like Roger Ver or Jihan Wu from Bitmain? I imagine you're probably not on their Christmas party lists and vice versa.
I have nothing against them personally, but I think Roger doesn't like me because I was poking fun at him before when he was going to Australia for a conference and he couldn't get a visa. I said, he says, I forget what he said. He said like, they're worried I won't leave, and I said that's a valid concern. I don't think that's like I think that's funny, and he got angry about that. So I think he won't talk to me anymore. But I don't really hold bear any ill will towards him. I wouldn't want to do a panel with him or sit next to him on a stage or spend time with him. But I don't really have anything against him.
And Jihan?
Well, for Jihan, I don't think he likes me very much because I expose a lot of things about their IPO, and yeah, he probably doesn't like that.
Where do you think Bitmain is at now as we move forward into 2020? What do you think the health of Bitmain is, and where do they go next?
Well, now that everything has kind of died down, I've kind of stopped paying attention too much to Bitmain. There's a guy named BTC King 555. He's probably more on the ball about what's happening there than I am. And also Dovey Wan, but I don't think they're in a very good position. I hear they're canceling their US IPO, and they got listed on the information's list of I forgot what it's called, companies to watch out for because they're not doing well. Not that great for them.
Yes, well, it'll be interesting to see if they can recover this year. And look, just to finish off on the conspiracy theory stuff, because, you talked about the RBTC subreddit on Reddit, and, I had a look in that subreddit yesterday, and just you punch in Samson Mow in the search, and as I'm sure you're aware, there are hundreds and hundreds of posts about yourself with some extremely wild and detailed conspiracy theories about you and Blockstream, as we sort of hinted at before. Does that stuff get exhausting?
Not really, because I don't really engage with them or do battle with them. So for me, okay, first of all, I don't even use Reddit. I think I have a Reddit account, but I've posted like once or twice because I just don't feel it's productive to argue with people on the internet. And the way I use Twitter is really just a broadcast medium. I don't really get into arguments with people and debate things because I don't really see a point to it. I'd rather just broadcast my message, and if they are going to be annoying, I just block them, because otherwise it would be unusable for me. I wouldn't be able to actually engage with anyone in any meaningful way. But there are people that like to engage, and for them, I would think it would be exhausting. Like Fluffy Pony Ricardo, he always argues with people on Twitter, and sometimes I'll see it pop up in my feed, and I just think, whoa, I can't believe you're spending your time doing that.
What's the craziest thing you've read about yourself on the internet?
I don't know. I just kind of... I don't really keep it in my mind. I mean, the best one is really just the Bilderberg group controls Blockstream. That's not specific to me, but that's my favorite.
Magical crypto friends, Samson.
Yes.
Just tell me a little bit about what you guys have planned for this year, because you guys are doing the Magical Crypto Conference, right?
Yeah, so we have the New York edition, which is in May. That's May 9th and 10th, Mother's Day weekend. And we have another one planned later this year, probably in November for Singapore. I guess we've been getting requests to do something not in the US. So that's our effort to go out and abroad and make it more accessible for people in different areas of the world. But I think MCC 2020 is going to be pretty big. We've got a really great lineup of speakers. We're working on the content schedule, topics. We've got a Lightning demo room this year, so it's going to be for projects building on top of Lightning to showcase what they've been working on. But yeah, we're aiming to make it bigger and better than 2019.
Awesome. Can't wait to see any speakers that you can talk about.
Yeah, we've invited back some of the speakers from last year. So Adam Back, Meltem, Elaine, Alex Gladstein, and yeah, we'll probably add some new ones for sure.
And I always enjoy the I guess you'd call it a podcast, but you guys you film your podcasts and you can obviously either listen to them or watch them on YouTube. But there's a different level of production when you've got 4 different people in 4 different countries all filming, and you've got animation and music. And who's sort of behind the scenes putting all that together?
I think it's mostly me. I'll take credit for that.
Was the show your vision then? With the animation and the cartoon characters, and I guess because you're sort of you're an anime guy, right?
I guess so. I mean, we were trying to figure out ways to differentiate, and given that we're all associated with some animal in our name or either as a mascot, so Charlie's mascot for Litecoin is a chicken, we figured we could do a play on that.
So what's the long-term vision for Magical Crypto Friends? You're going to keep it rolling?
Yeah, I think we're experimenting with a few things. So we used to do once a month, like hour-long episodes. And a couple months back, we changed it up to do, in one sitting, we'd record 3 episodes. So that's an effort to get more content out. But then we're seeing the downside of that, which is the content is even more stale than it usually is. So we're actually planning to do a live show February and see how that goes. But we're experimenting with different things. But the plan is definitely to keep it going. I think people like the show. We have a fun brand, and the conference is quite popular. So there's no reason to stop.
And just to finish off before we go to a final break, and then we'll come back with the very famous Crypto Conversation hot take round. Not to stir the trolls again, Samson, but what's your hot take on Ethereum? I'm always amused when I hear you blasting the Ethereum ecosystem. Where do you think Ethereum is at as we go into 2020 and, they're moving towards proof of stake, Serenity, Ethereum 2.0? Can they pull this off?
I have no idea. I just find Ethereum very entertaining at this point. They keep overpromising things, moving goalposts. If I was an Ethereum fan, I would start to be disillusioned at this point because everything is just on the horizon. It's all going to be fixed magically at some point. and it's been years now, and nothing has really come of it other than it's a way for people to issue tokens, and that's it.
Fair enough. We'll leave it at that. Okay, we will go to another quick break, and then we're back with the Crypto Conversation Hot Take Round.
All right.
Whether you're an enterprise fund manager or a retail trader, buying and selling cryptocurrencies successfully requires price discovery you can rely on. Brave New Coin's liquid indices provide trusted US dollar prices for Bitcoin, Ethereum, and Ripple. Featuring end-of-day or intraday outputs, you can count on the BLX, ELX, and XRPLX for accurate US dollar pricing for smart contract oracles, settlement price discovery, net asset valuation, and performance analysis. Visit bravenewcoin.com to find out more.
All right, Samson, I like to finish each Crypto Conversation podcast with just a quick round of rapid-fire crypto hot takes. Are you up for it?
Sure, let's do it.
Samson Mow from Blockstream. I just want your hot takes, your hot fire. Take your best shot. Here we go. Where do you sit on the Bitcoin maximalist to multi-coin opportunist spectrum?
I would say I'm more maximalist than multi-coin, but I don't really have anything against things existing as long as they're not scammy.
Sure. Nice answer. Agree. Samson, what would you say is your firmest conviction crypto opinion?
That hyper-Bitcoinization is inevitable.
Nice. I love it. Samson, I ask every guest this question. Who wins the American presidential election 2020? And that is this year.
Andrew Yang.
Nice. Okay, well, speaking of Mr. Yang, UBI as a potential fix for AI-induced automation. What do you think of UBI? Is this a good idea?
I think it's a horrible idea, but I think people in general like it, so that's why he's going to win.
All right, fair enough. Samson, Bill Gates famously said, we tend to overestimate what we can accomplish in 2 years and underestimate what we can accomplish in 10. What does the blockchain space look like in 10 years' time?
Interesting. I think it's going to be a bit more simple than today. I think there's a lot of education that's happening. People are starting to understand that all these purported next-gen projects are not, in fact, real projects. And that should die off, at least I hope so, for humanity's sake. And we'll just see a lot more focus on Bitcoin and Bitcoin-related technologies.
Samson, William Gibson said that the future is here, it's just not evenly distributed. What's an example of the future being here right now, but most people just aren't really aware of it?
I think Bitcoin is the perfect example. It is here, but most people don't understand it or realize why they should understand it. And that's why I think for Bitcoin to become common in everyday life, it's going to take some time as people fully understand the importance and the game changer it is.
Very nicely said. Samson, let's zoom out. What do you think is the long-term future for the human race? Do you see dystopia or utopia?
I think it largely depends on Bitcoin adoption. If we have Bitcoin, then it'll likely be more utopian than dystopian. I think the current trajectory with surveillance capitalism, fiat money is just going to spiral us into that dystopian world. Right? If you can print all the money you want, then everything is kind of worthless. You're not investing money in worthwhile things. You're just looking for short-term gains to offset that money printing. You buy worthless things you think for the short term, but Bitcoin kind of changes your mindset and makes you think more longer term and on longer time horizons, and investing in things that are going to endure.
Exactly right. Stack sats.
Yeah.
Okay, Samson, you're a gamer. What is your favorite game, and what is the future of gaming, and how can we integrate Bitcoin into gaming? It's a lot of questions for a hot take.
My favorite game is StarCraft, so I spent probably the most time playing StarCraft. I also have a sweet spot for Lineage 2, which is an MMO that I also plugged a lot of time into. And I think the future of gaming is going to be MMO type games that have different ways that you can access and play. If you're more hardcore, you can get more involved. If you're more casual, you can just play it more the soft touch. And I think having one game that can serve these disparate markets is the key. because different people want different things out of games. And I think a way to bridge that gap is I'll plug my own game, Infinite Fleet. It's an MMO title that we're working on at Pixelmatic. It's going to incorporate a crypto token issued on Liquid to replace the game currency. So if you imagine World of Warcraft, the World of Warcraft gold is now a crypto asset. And I think that changes things because now people can easily move their in-game currency and trade it freely, and they can plug into the crypto exchange ecosystem around the world.
Very nice. Well, that sounds quite exciting. I will keep an eye on that. Finally, though, Samson, what is your favorite science fiction book, film, show, or universe?
I would say I don't have a particular favorite. I like a lot of different elements from different things, and that's why for Infinite Fleet, I'm actually enjoying that world building a lot, because I can take the elements that I like and discard the things I don't like from different universes. So I would say my favorite in sci-fi universes is the Star Trek universe, but there's also some problems with it.
Okay, look, a lot of people have said Star Trek, but what is interesting is you said that there are some problems with the Star Trek universe. So apart from, the Borg or the Klingons, what are the problems with the Star Trek universe?
Well, I think the biggest thing for me is that they don't have a concept of money. They kind of do with Latinum, but the Federation doesn't actually have a currency. Everything is for free, and that just seems to be too unlikely, and it kind of erodes that whole universe for me. If you don't focus on that aspect of it, then it's fine, but I don't see it realistic that there is no form of money and everyone just kind of gets everything for free. Yeah,
interesting, because I think that's one of the attractions to Star Trek, is it is that sort of utopian future of abundance where, people have just kind of worked things out. We'll leave it there. Thank you so much for talking to me today, Samson. The microphone is yours. Take us out. Please tell the listeners where they can find you on your various platforms, where they can go to learn more about the Blockstream products. Anything else you want to say, go for gold.
All right. So on Twitter, my handle is Excellion, EXCELLION. If you want to learn more about Blockstream, we are also on Twitter at Blockstream. We also have a help account if you need help with anything. It's at Blockstream Help. And we have a ton of information on blockstream.com, localized into several languages. So you can learn about the latest developments that we have, new products, and yeah, hit us up.
Thank you, Samson. All the best.
Thanks, Andy. Great chatting.
Okay, well, there you go. That was Samson Mow, Chief Strategy Officer at Blockstream. Thank you to Samson for appearing on the show. Links in the show notes to a Blockstream, so you can check out their website and all the products and protocols that we talked about today as Blockstream build out the future of finance on Bitcoin. Also, a link in the show notes to Elon Musk's Starlink network, the satellite network. That is a fascinating development. Hey, shout out to Elon for taking Tesla to the moon. That's been a fascinating ride. Look, I don't have Tesla shares, but man, Tesla is smashing it. Great to see. Also, shout out to Jack Dorsey. Jack, of course, is a big supporter of Bitcoin. Got to get on that Blockstream mining buzz, Jack. Or at the very least, if not that, what about adding Bitcoin lightning-powered tipping to Twitter? I think that would do it. That would make a lot of people very happy. Also, a link in the show notes to Excellion.com, which of course is Samson's online merchandise proof of hat shop. I did actually mean to talk to Samson about that. It's actually a really slick site with some very nice black and white photography. Yeah, so if you're ever in the market for a Blockstream hat or a Dragon's Den hat, various other hats there, you can check that out. Thank you for listening, and don't forget to subscribe to the Crypto Conversation podcast in whatever podcast app you are using. If you did enjoy today's chat, please do leave us a 5-star rating in Apple Podcasts, iTunes. Leave us a nice review. We would appreciate it. Would love it. See you real soon. Keep it locked. But for now, we are out of here. This was the Crypto Conversation for Brave New Coin